Happiness is a practice, not a prize. Happiness isn't some mysterious blessing scattered at random by fate for a fortunate few. It doesn't magically arrive when life lines up in perfect order, nor does it bloom simply because the sky is blue. Happiness demands far more. It is not comfort. It is not fortune. It is a challenge, a decision, and above all, a discipline. Life, with all its flaws, unpredictability, and disorder, will always try to shake your balance. It will whisper sly lies into your mind. You can only smile when things are flawless. You can only rest when every burden is gone. You can only feel peace once everyone approves of you. If you listen, you'll spend your years chasing a mirage, waiting for a perfection that never comes. But Stoicism offers something simpler and infinitely stronger. You don't need a perfect life. You need a resilient heart. You don't need a flawless path. You need the will to stand up each time you stumble. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In those words lies the essence of Stoic happiness. It is not determined by what happens to you, but by how you choose to shape your response. Happiness, then, is not something you wait on. It is not a trophy the universe someday delivers. It is something you construct, deliberately, consistently, day after day. And that is what this journey is about. Here are timeless lessons, rooted in Stoic wisdom, honed over centuries, and validated by modern psychology, that will help you develop a dynamic and resilient mindset. So instead of waking and asking, "Will today bring me happiness?" you can rise and declare with certainty, "This day is mine. I will shape it into meaning." Lesson 1. Happiness is a choice, not a reward. In today's world, we're conditioned to confuse fleeting pleasures with true fulfillment. We're told to wait for the right career, the right partner, the dream trip, the ideal paycheck, the day when everything finally aligns. Only then, they say, will happiness arrive. But the truth, unyielding though it may sound, is far stronger. Happiness is not stumbled upon. It is chosen. Not once, not twice, but over and over, especially on the days when it feels most difficult to choose it. The Stoics never promised that life would be fair or painless. They didn't expect comfort, nor demand ease. They knew what we often forget. Life never stays perfect for long. Not for anyone. You will feel weary. You will taste disappointment. Trust will be broken. Pressure will weigh on you from every direction. And still, even in that storm, one power will always remain, the power to choose your response. Will you react with bitterness, feeding resentment? Or will you respond with composure, with clarity, with purpose? Marcus Aurelius reminded us, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." This isn't a phrase meant for pretty calligraphy on a notebook. It's a directive. Your thoughts, the unseen story you tell yourself daily, create the reality you live inside. If your inner voice insists, "I can only be happy when life is easy," you will quietly drown in despair. But if your voice insists, "Joy is not the absence of struggle, it is the strength I forge through it," then even hardship becomes training for the soul. This is why happiness has nothing to do with applause or approval. You don't need the world to soften in order to smile. You don't need validation to feel worthy. What you need is discipline, the discipline to pause before reacting, to breathe before breaking, to protect your inner peace as if it were a fortress under siege. That is the Stoic lesson. Joy is never passive. It is not handed out freely. It is built, stone by stone, from within, through habits, reflection, gratitude, and self-mastery. And once it is built, it cannot be shattered by the chaos outside. Yes, life will test you. It will strip things away. It will lay burdens on your shoulders you never asked for. But it cannot take the one thing that belongs only to you, your power to respond. Unless, of course, you surrender it. The world may land the first blow, but you always decide the final move. And that last move, that defining response, is your mindset, your calm, your ability to choose meaning when resentment would be easier. This is why happiness is not a payment owed to you by life. It is not a prize earned for good behavior. It is something you create through persistence, especially when you are tempted to quit. And the more you act from strength instead of impulse, the more joy becomes not something you pursue, but something you embody. So tomorrow morning, don't ask, will this day make me happy? Instead ask, how will I bring strength into this day? Because from strength flows peace, and from peace emerges a deeper, unshakable happiness. That is the Stoic path. That is how joy becomes unbreakable. Lesson 2. Begin with clarity. The way you start your morning often sets the rhythm of the whole day. A chaotic dawn rarely leads to a calm afternoon. A distracted first hour rarely ends with focus. This is why both Stoic wisdom and modern psychology place immense weight on how you begin your day. Starting with clarity isn't about hacks or productivity tricks. It's a subtle yet powerful form of therapy. Research confirms what the Stoics sensed centuries ago. Even the smallest intentional acts in the morning, silence, journaling, stretching, prayer, reflection, profoundly shape focus, stress, and well-being. But clarity doesn't just fall into your lap. It must be carved from noise, protected like sacred ground. And nothing pollutes that ground faster than the glowing screen in your hand. If your first sight is your phone, news, emails, feeds, you're not starting your day. You're reacting to someone else's. Your mind becomes a battlefield before you've even risen from bed. The Stoics warned us about this long before smartphones. They taught that how you direct your mind in the first minutes of the morning defines how you will face the world. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." That is not sentiment. It's instruction. A reminder to awaken not in a daze, stumbling into noise, but with gratitude, presence, and intention. Because your very first thought begins painting the story of your day. Is it gratitude or anxiety? Purpose or distraction? Don't let an algorithm dictate your mood. Begin with stillness. 5 minutes, only 5. Sit quietly. Breathe deeply. Ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be today? What energy do I want to carry into the world? This isn't about perfection. It's about presence. Choosing clarity before chaos. You don't need a flawless life to wake with focus. You need discipline, boundaries, the will to guard your first waking moments like a fortress, strong, steady, untouched. In that quiet, even for a short time, you remind your mind who leads. You train it to obey you, not the world. That is where peace begins. That is where strength is born. And here's the reality. Your day is not something that simply happens to you. You meet it. You mold it. You lead it from the very first breath. But clarity alone is never enough. Without consistent action, even the sharpest vision fades. Which brings us to the next Stoic principle, the one that transforms clarity into momentum and momentum into mastery. Discipline. When clarity pairs with consistency, habits are forged. And when the right habits are repeated daily, transformation becomes inevitable. Let us explore that next. Discipline, habits, and the power of focus. Lesson 3. The strength of discipline and habit. Most of us sit around waiting for motivation as if it were a thunderbolt. Sudden, dazzling, and powerful enough to launch us into action. But if you've lived even a little, you know the truth. Motivation is fragile. It shows up when life is light, when the mood is pleasant, when everything already feels easy. And the instant life grows heavy, as it always will, motivation disappears. That is why lasting happiness, the kind that can weather storms, cannot rest on the shaky foundation of motivation. It requires something sturdier, something that doesn't bend with moods or fleeting emotions. That something is discipline, and discipline takes shape through habit. The Stoics never painted life as effortless. They never claimed virtue would come naturally. Instead, they offered clarity. A way to endure and thrive, even in hardship. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You must build up your life action by action, and be satisfied if each one fulfills its purpose as far as it can." In that single line, he sketches the blueprint of peace. It is constructed not by bursts of feeling but by deliberate, repeated choices. Discipline is often misunderstood. Many see it as a cage, the enemy of freedom. In truth, it is freedom's backbone. Consider a musician. Without relentless practice, there is no liberty to improvise beautifully. Consider an athlete. Without rigorous training, there is no freedom to excel under pressure. Freedom is not the absence of structure, it is mastery within it. When we shape routines, we design an inner framework that shields us from chaos. Small rituals. 5 minutes of journaling, a quiet walk at sunrise, silence before unlocking the phone, choosing water instead of distraction. May seem trivial, but repeated, they become the steady beat of a centered life. Modern psychology confirms what the Stoics intuited. Habits lighten the mental load. They automate the essentials, freeing the mind for higher pursuits. James Clear, in Atomic Habits, echoes Stoic wisdom. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. That is the point. You do not rise to wishful intentions. You settle at the level of your habits. The outer world may twist unpredictably, but your inner life steadies itself when discipline grounds you. Emotional resilience isn't discovered by accident. It's trained. And that training rarely feels glamorous. It's waking when you'd rather sleep. It's choosing growth over comfort. It's clearing the mind each morning before the world can clutter it. Real strength is born here in repetition, in persistence, in the quiet decisions no one applauds. A Stoic does not ask, "Do I feel like it today?" That question is irrelevant. Only the action matters. This shift from being ruled by feelings to living by principle is where discipline draws its power. Habits become a compass, keeping us steady even in the storm. In a culture obsessed with indulgence, distraction, and constant stimulation, discipline becomes an act of rebellion. To choose simplicity, to choose stillness, to choose effort over ease. That is Stoicism at work. Not the denial of emotion, but the refusal to be enslaved by it. Thus, the road to daily happiness is not paved with bursts of positivity or rare streaks of luck. It is carved by small, repeated acts, the habits that build resilience. Because happiness is not a fleeting mood you stumble into. It is a state of being. And that state is built on discipline. Lesson 4. Guarding your focus and feeding your mind. We live in an age of endless noise. Never before have so many voices competed for your attention. Every alert, every headline, every scroll is designed to steal a fragment of your focus. And here lies a timeless truth. What you focus on expands. This isn't motivational fluff, it's psychological fact. Scientists call it attentional bias. The more you look for negativity, the more negativity you see. The more you notice opportunities, the more opportunities reveal themselves. The Stoics grasped this centuries before neuroscience. They knew that tranquility is not dictated by circumstance, but by where you choose to place your attention. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Your mind will be like its habitual thoughts, for the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Notice, the soul is not stained by events themselves, but by the thoughts we repeatedly weave around them. That is profound. It means you are not a passive witness of reality, you are its painter. Each thought adds color to your inner world. This leads us to something crucial, your mental diet. We know that food shapes the body. But what about the mind? What you consume, media, conversations, books, ideas, sculpts your inner landscape as surely as nutrition sculpts your health. If you feed your mind envy, gossip, outrage, comparison, can you expect serenity? If you drown in endless streams of social media engineered to provoke insecurity, can you expect peace? But if you nourish your mind with wisdom, books that endure, conversations that challenge and uplift, quiet reflection, you are strengthening your resilience. You are feeding strength. Epictetus, once a slave, warned against surrendering your mind to outside voices. He taught that not every opinion deserves your energy. Not every event deserves your worry. Today, minimalists echo the same lesson. Marie Kondo taught us to tidy our homes. The Stoics taught us, long before, to tidy our thoughts. Both understood, clutter steals clarity. Mental clutter is worse because it creeps in silently. One day you wake anxious, heavy, and restless. not realizing you've let 1,000 useless voices invade. None of them belong to you, so defend your focus as you would defend a fortress. Filter what enters. Not every headline deserves your attention. Not every quarrel requires your energy. Not every trend deserves your time. Your attention is your vote. Each day, you cast it for the world you wish to inhabit. Spend it on outrage, and you create a life of turmoil. Spend it on gratitude, wisdom, and discipline, and you create a life of calm strength. This is not about ignoring reality. It is about choosing what you allow to stain your soul. Read slowly. Think deeply. Speak with people who sharpen you kindly. Sit in silence when noise grows too loud. You cannot control the world, but you can control your focus. That is where strength begins. That is where peace is born. That is where happiness becomes not a reward, but a daily practice. Lesson 5. Gratitude as armor. Gratitude is often misunderstood. Many think it means pretending life isn't painful or pretending hardship doesn't hurt. But gratitude is not denial. Gratitude is endurance. When storms rage, gratitude does not murmur, "Everything is fine." It declares, "Even now I see what endures." The Stoics leaned on gratitude not because their lives were soft, but because they were hard. Epictetus, born enslaved, living with disability, still wrote, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for what he lacks, but rejoices for what he has." Gratitude becomes defiance against despair. It interrupts comparison, bitterness, and the endless craving for more. In a world designed to keep you dissatisfied, gratitude whispers, "Enough. I see what remains. I see what matters. I see what lasts." Its strength lies not in grand miracles, but in the ordinary. A sunrise breaking the dark. The warmth of a cup of tea. The fact that, despite pain, you are still breathing, still standing, still free to choose your next step. Begin your mornings not by grasping for your phone, but by grounding yourself. Ask, what remains? What endures? What can I still be thankful for even here? End your nights not with complaints, but with reflection. What did I survive today? What strength did I reveal? What lesson did I learn? These small rituals form a shield. Practice daily. Gratitude becomes armor. It does not erase hardship, but it equips you to carry it with dignity. Modern research agrees. Studies show that gratitude lowers stress, deepens relationships, and even strengthens the body. Gratitude is not sentiment, it is survival. It is not weakness, but strength. Not naivety, but clarity. Not denial, but rebellion. And in the end, gratitude reminds us, life does not need to be perfect to be good. Impermanence, desire, and the freedom within. Lesson 6. Embracing life's impermanence. The human heart resists change. We hold fast to the familiar, the faces we love, the routines that anchor us, the titles that shape our identity. Yet life, with its relentless rhythm, eventually takes them all away. The reality of impermanence is as unyielding as it is liberating. Everything fades. The Stoics did not shy away from this truth. They faced it with clear eyes. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." That line jars the modern ear. How could loss be a delight? Yet Aurelius was not praising cruelty, he was pointing to clarity. The world is in ceaseless motion. Seasons turn, bodies age, empires crumble. To fight this tide is to exhaust yourself against the inevitable. To accept it is to align with reality, and in that alignment discover peace. In ancient Rome, victorious generals returning from triumphal parades were whispered to by a servant, "Memento mori, remember you are mortal." Even at the height of glory, they were reminded their moment was fleeting. The point was not despair, but humility. Today we do the opposite. Our culture denies death, hides aging, and clings desperately to the illusion of permanence. We're told youth can be bottled, happiness preserved, and endings avoided. But this is fantasy. The river flows whether or not we acknowledge it. The practice of impermanence is not meant to drain life of joy, but to sharpen it. Knowing your coffee will soon grow cold makes you savor its warmth. Knowing a conversation will end makes you listen more closely. Knowing life itself is fragile makes you stop waiting for someday and start living now. The Stoics saw death not as an enemy, but as a teacher. Seneca reminded us, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Time is not scarce, it is squandered. And the way to honor it is not by denying death, but by remembering it." Impermanence, then, is not to be feared, it is to be practiced. Each dawn, remind yourself, this day is temporary, this body is temporary, these moments will not return. And rather than despair, let that truth ignite urgency. To live with impermanence is not to live in sadness, but to live awake. Lesson 7. Governing desire instead of being governed by it. If impermanence teaches us that nothing lasts, desire teaches us another truth. The more we chase, the more restless we become. Desire itself is not the enemy. Hunger sustains us. Curiosity propels us. Ambition builds civilizations. But when desire rules unchecked, multiplying without restraint, it becomes a chain that drags us endlessly. The Stoics warned of this trap constantly. Epictetus declared, "Freedom is not achieved by satisfying desires, but by eliminating them." Think about that in the modern world. Entire industries profit from your dissatisfaction. Advertising exists to convince you that something essential is missing. Happiness, they say, lies in the next phone, the next trip, the next success. Yet once you reach it, the horizon shifts. Desire grows again. The cycle never ends. Seneca compared this pursuit to drinking from the sea. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. True happiness, then, is not about granting every want, but about training the mind to want less, to find contentment in simplicity, to stop chasing shadows. The Stoics practiced this discipline deliberately. Wealthy Romans would sometimes eat plain bread instead of feasts, wear coarse clothing instead of silks, or sleep on hard ground though soft beds were theirs. Not out of hatred for pleasure, but as a rehearsal for freedom. They asked, "If I lose these things tomorrow, will I still be whole?" Modern psychology echoes this wisdom. Hedonic adaptation, the tendency to return to a baseline of happiness after gains or losses, shows us that possessions, pleasures, and wealth rarely change our well-being for long. Perspective does. There is a difference between pleasure and joy. Pleasure is fleeting, fragile, external. Joy is steady, rooted, internal. Pleasure can be stripped away. Cultivated joy cannot. So how do we master desire? Not by erasing it entirely, but by governing it. Ask yourself with each longing, does this add meaning, or does it distract? Does this strengthen me, or weaken me? When desire serves virtue, pursue it with energy. But when desire enslaves you, release it without regret. Because true wealth is measured not by how much you possess, but by how little you require. Lesson 8. Inner freedom is the only freedom that lasts. The world speaks endlessly of freedom, political, economic, social. All are important. But the Stoics knew a freedom greater than them all, freedom within. No one knew this more than Epictetus. Born a slave, his body was not his own. He was beaten, commanded, deprived of choices. Yet he discovered something extraordinary. Though others controlled his body, they could not control his mind. His inner freedom remained untouched. He said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." This is a radical idea. Freedom is not the absence of chains on your body, but the absence of chains on your soul. You may live in a palace and be enslaved by greed, fear, and anger. You may live in a prison and remain free if your mind is unshaken. History proves this. Nelson Mandela, imprisoned for 27 years, emerged with forgiveness instead of hatred. Viktor Frankl, surviving the Nazi camps, wrote that the last of human freedoms is the power to choose one's attitude in any circumstance. These are not abstractions, they are lived truths. In our age, slavery takes subtler forms. We are shackled not by iron but by screens, approval, consumption, and fear. The question remains, are you master of yourself or servant of your impulses? Inner freedom comes when you govern your reactions. When insults cannot wound you. When praise cannot intoxicate you. When loss cannot undo you. When pleasure cannot enslave you. This is not detachment, but presence. It is not withdrawal, but engagement without losing yourself. Seneca put it simply, the man who is master of himself is truly free. This is what Stoicism offers, not escape from life, but mastery within it. With inner freedom, you become untouchable in the ways that matter most. Wealth may vanish, but you are not poor. Health may fail, but you are not broken. Death may come, but you are not defeated. Because freedom is not bestowed by the world. It is claimed in the mind. And once claimed, it cannot be taken. Impermanence, desire, and freedom are not lofty ideals. They are practical tools. Accept change and you stop wasting energy resisting it. Master desire and you stop being ruled by it. Cultivate inner freedom and you become untouchable to circumstance. The Stoics remind us, happiness does not come from controlling the world, but from mastering yourself within it. That is where resilience is forged. That is where peace becomes real. Preparing for adversity, reflection, and the strength of community. Lesson 9. Train for adversity before it arrives. Life rarely warns us before the storm. Illness strikes without notice. Careers collapse overnight. Loved ones vanish unexpectedly. The future, with its endless uncertainty, waits for no one. Most stumble when hardship comes because they've built their lives on the fragile hope of calm seas. But the Stoics, realists of the highest order, trained for tempests even under sunny skies. This discipline was called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. It was not pessimism, it was preparation. Marcus Aurelius practiced it every morning. He reminded himself, when you wake up, tell yourself, the people I meet today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, jealous, and surly. To modern ears, this sounds grim, even cynical. But Marcus wasn't poisoning his mind, he was rehearsing reality. He was building armor for his soul. By expecting obstacles, he was less likely to be shaken, angered, or defeated when they arrived. We can do the same. Picture the setbacks that may appear today, the delays, the criticism, the disappointments. Visualize them, not to brood, but to blunt their sting. When you prepare for what could go wrong, you strip it of its power to surprise. The U.S. Marines put it bluntly, sweat more in training, bleed less in battle. That is Stoicism distilled. By mentally rehearsing adversity, you are not summoning misfortune. You are strengthening your resilience. Even modern psychology borrows this wisdom. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, a leading treatment for anxiety and depression, grew from Stoic roots. It trains people to reframe fear, confront imagined scenarios with reason, and prepare responses in advance. The Stoics did not deny pain. They befriended it before it arrived. In doing so, they dulled its sharpest weapon, surprise. So don't pray for a life without storms. Pray for a mind trained to endure them, because hardship will come. The only question is whether you will be ready or unready. Lesson 10. The discipline of reflection. The unexamined life, Socrates said, is not worth living. The Stoics agreed. For them, reflection was not an ornament, it was a necessity. Seneca wrote letters not only to guide friends but to test himself. Marcus Aurelius wrote his Meditations, a private notebook, never meant for eyes but his own, as a way of examining his soul and correcting its faults. Epictetus urged students to end each day by asking, what did I do well? What did I do poorly? What can I do better tomorrow? Reflection is not about guilt, it is about growth. It is a mirror for the spirit. Without that mirror, we walk in circles, repeating the same mistakes. Think of athletes reviewing game footage. They don't study to shame themselves, they study to refine their craft. Reflection does the same for character. It reveals patterns. When anger flares too quickly, when fear speaks too loudly, when pride blinds the eye. In a world drowning in noise, reflection is almost revolutionary. We scroll, consume, react, but rarely pause to ask, why did I respond that way? What does this reveal about me? How can I improve tomorrow? Simple practices open the door. Keep a journal not for beauty, but for honesty. Write down what tested you, what lifted you, what you regret, what you cherish. Or, if writing feels forced, simply sit in silence each night and replay the day, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Reflection creates distance between stimulus and response. It slows the rush. It turns life into a classroom instead of a blur. And here is the quiet gift. Reflection also breeds gratitude. To notice the day closely is to notice its blessings. The kind word, the fleeting laughter, the small victories. Do not let your days dissolve into weeks, your weeks into years. Pause. Reflect. Examine. For a life without reflection is not a life. It is just time slipping by. Lesson 11. The power of community. We often picture the Stoic as a solitary warrior. Silent, immovable, facing storms alone. But this image, while striking, is incomplete. The Stoics valued community deeply. They knew resilience is not forged in isolation. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "We are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids, like the rows of the upper and lower teeth." Stoicism does not demand withdrawal. It teaches wise interdependence. Humans are social by nature. To sever ourselves from others is not strength. It is a denial of who we are. Even in ancient Rome, community was fragile. Wars tore families apart. Politics bred betrayal. Plagues ravaged cities. Yet the Stoics held firm. Despite cruelty, despite corruption, we must act justly, because society depends on it. Modern science agrees. Research on longevity shows that health and happiness are tied less to wealth or status than to relationships. Those with strong bonds live longer, heal faster, and thrive deeper. But there is a difference between community and the crowd. The crowd corrupts. The community uplifts. The Stoic way is to seek relationships that raise you higher. Seneca counseled, "Associate with those who will make you better." This is not arrogance, it is wisdom. Walk among the fearful, the greedy, the angry, and their habits seep into you. Walk among the disciplined, the truthful, the kind, and their strength becomes yours. Today, community might look like a handful of honest friends, an online circle dedicated to growth, or even the silent company of timeless thinkers through books. The truth is simple. Resilience is not a solitary pursuit. You need people who remind you of your values when you forget, who hold you accountable when you falter, who stand beside you when the path grows heavy. Even Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, surrounded himself with mentors, generals, and philosophers. Though the most powerful man alive, he knew he was not above the need for companionship. Strength is not found in isolation. It is found in wise interdependence. It is knowing when to stand alone and when to lean on others. Because happiness does not bloom in solitude. It blooms in connection to ourselves, to others, and to the greater human whole. To live wisely, the Stoics remind us, we must prepare for adversity, reflect with honesty, and embrace community. These are not separate practices, but interwoven threads. Preparation gives resilience when storms break. Reflection sharpens the mind so each day becomes a lesson. Community strengthens the heart so we do not collapse in solitude. Together, they form a life not just survivable, but meaningful. Criticism, hardship, and turning suffering into strength. Lesson 12. Withstanding criticism without breaking. Every life lived with conviction will encounter opposition. Step outside the comfort of the crowd. Live by principle rather than fashion, and resistance will surely find you. The Stoics knew this well. They lived in worlds where speaking truth could be perilous, where reputations were fragile, and honor could be ruined in a single night. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Criticism itself is powerless until we lend it power. An insult is mere noise until pride interprets it as a wound. Praise is only sound until ego clings to it as identity. The Stoic path is not about scorning people, but about breaking the chains of their opinions. Think of Epictetus. Born a slave, dismissed, degraded, treated as less than human. Yet he declared, "When anyone provokes you, be sure that it is your opinion which provokes you." He refused to surrender the keys of his inner state to others. Modern life makes this lesson sharper still. Social media, comment sections, and public shaming amplify careless words until they roar. A single post can summon thousands, some cheering, many jeering. In such a world, Stoic resilience is not optional, it is survival. How do we build it? By cultivating indifference to what doesn't touch virtue. This is not arrogance, but clarity. Praise does not make you virtuous. Insults do not make you vicious. Only your choices, your deeds, your character define you. Criticism can even be a gift. The Stoics didn't reject feedback, they sifted it. If it holds truth, let it refine you. If it carries malice but no truth, discard it with calm. Either way, you remain untouchable. This is freedom. Not immunity from judgment, but freedom from being ruled by it. Lesson 13, hardship as training, not punishment. When hardship arrives, our first cry is often, "Why me? Why now? What did I do to deserve this?" But difficulty is not a cosmic punishment, it is training. It is the weight that strengthens the soul's muscle. The Stoics saw life as a gymnasium of the spirit. Challenges were exercises designed to forge endurance. Seneca put it plainly, "Fire tests gold, adversity tests brave men." Without struggle, resilience is a theory. With struggle, it becomes truth. Their lives proved it. Seneca was exiled, then compelled to take his own life by Nero's command. Marcus Aurelius led Rome through wars, plagues, and betrayal. Epictetus began life in chains. None were spared suffering. Yet their philosophy did not break under pressure, it was shaped by it. Hardship is rarely fair, but it is universal. And the moment we shift from asking, "Why me?" to, "How can I use this?" we begin to transmute pain into strength. Modern psychology mirrors this with the concept of post-traumatic growth. Studies show that many who endure deep trials emerge with greater resilience, stronger bonds, and a clearer appreciation for life, if they choose to frame hardship as training rather than tragedy alone. This does not romanticize pain or erase grief. It only acknowledges that resistance, while inevitable, can be used. Think of athletes. The weights they lift are not punishment but resistance that builds strength. The Stoics understood hardship in the same way, resistance training for the soul. So when life presses weight on your shoulders, you face a choice. Collapse beneath it or rise with it. You may not have chosen the burden, but you can choose the person it will shape you into. Hardship is not an enemy. It is the forge. Lesson 14. Transforming suffering into strength. Suffering is unavoidable. Every human life contains it. The question is not if you will suffer, but how you will suffer. The Stoics believed suffering can either fracture you or fortify you, depending on your response. Epictetus, left crippled by a master's cruelty, might have drowned in resentment. Instead, he turned pain into wisdom, becoming one of history's great teachers of resilience. Centuries later, Viktor Frankl echoed the same truth in Man's Search for Meaning. Imprisoned in Nazi concentration camps, he discovered that survival depended less on physical strength than on finding meaning in suffering. He wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. This is not glorifying pain, it is refusing to waste it. If suffering is inevitable, let it not be meaningless. Let it sharpen your vision, deepen your compassion, and reveal your courage." Suffering teaches compassion. Those who've been broken understand the broken. It teaches humility. Only when stripped of comfort do we grasp life's fragility. It teaches courage. Only when tested do we uncover hidden strength. In Buddhism, suffering dukkha is central to wisdom. The Buddha did not promise escape, but transformation of our relationship with pain. The Stoics arrived at the same place. Suffering is not to be avoided blindly, but faced with awareness and courage. Marcus Aurelius's stark reminder captures it. If it is endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining. If it is unendurable, then stop complaining. Your destruction will mean its end as well. It sounds severe, but it cuts through illusion. Either you can endure or you cannot. Complaining changes nothing. Dignity, however, is always an option. So how do we turn suffering into strength in practice? 1. Name it honestly. Do not hide or sugarcoat pain. 2. Ask what it can teach. Does it expose weakness to strengthen? Compassion to awaken? 3. Act with dignity. Do not let pain corrupt your character. Meet it with courage, not bitterness. 4. Carry it forward. Let suffering alter your life. Not into fear, but into purpose. When you do this, suffering ceases to be a wound alone. It becomes a scar, a mark of survival and proof of strength. Criticism, hardship, suffering. Trials we never ask for, but all must face. The Stoics did not offer escape, they offered transformation. Criticism loses its sting when you stop letting others define your worth. Hardship becomes training when you see it as resistance that builds you. Suffering becomes meaningful when you refuse to let it go to waste. The world cannot guarantee comfort, but it will grant endless chances to practice resilience. And in those moments, you build a life no storm can take away. Time, mortality, and the urgency of living fully. Lesson 15. Time as the only true wealth. Money, fame, and possessions can be gained and lost, but time, once gone, never returns. The Stoics never tired of reminding themselves of this fact. Seneca's On the Shortness of Life is a direct challenge to anyone who spends their hours as if they were endless. He wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Think about that. The tragedy is not that life is too brief, but that so much of it slips away while we worry, distract ourselves, or squander it on the trivial. We guard our wallets, lock our homes, track every penny. Yet we give away our hours, the most precious currency, with reckless abandon. One wasted hour cannot be redeemed. One day lost to idleness never returns. Yet we treat time as limitless, while hoarding the things we cannot take beyond the grave. The Stoic lens reframes everything. If time is the only real wealth, then every day is a coin placed in your palm. You cannot keep it, but you can choose how to spend it. Seneca accused people of living as if they were destined to live forever, forever delaying real living for tomorrow. They are so preoccupied with what they are about to do that they neglect what they are doing. In our age, this warning feels painfully modern. How much of life dissolves in endless scrolling, pointless debates, or the chase for appearances? Technology has given us infinite ways to waste time, but very few ways to use it wisely. The Stoics would urge, reclaim your time. Audit your hours as carefully as your bank account. Ask yourself, what am I trading my life for? Every distraction, every indulgence, every commitment is an exchange. You are paying with your limited hours. Make sure the purchase is worth the price. Lesson 16. Memento mori, remember you will die. If time is wealth, then death is the final reminder that the account will close. The Stoics practiced memento mori, the reflection on mortality, not to fall into despair, but to awaken themselves to life. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." Far from being morbid, this practice freed them. To remember death is to live alert. To ignore death is to stumble through life half asleep, imagining you have more time than you do. The Romans had a ritual. During a victorious parade, a servant would whisper in the ear of the triumphant general, "Memento mori, remember you are mortal." Even at the height of glory, they were reminded. No triumph cancels death. Modern culture hides death from sight. We speak of it in hushed tones, bury it in hospitals, sanitize it away. But the Stoics faced it head-on. Death is not the opposite of life. It completes it. Without death, life would be endless repetition. With death, life gains urgency. To remember death is to transform choices. That petty quarrel you're about to escalate, Would it matter if this were your last day? That dream you keep postponing. Are you so sure you'll get another chance? Memento mori is not paralysis, it is clarity. It strips away delay and distraction, leaving only what matters. Seneca urged. Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day. Live so that if death came tonight, you would not regret how you spent today. Lesson 17. Urgency without panic. Awareness of mortality does not mean frenzy or recklessness. The Stoics did not promote panic. They promoted calm urgency. Marcus Aurelius cautioned himself. Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good. For the Stoics, urgency meant clarity. It meant refusing to burn time on envy, resentment, or vanity. It meant focusing on what you can control, your actions, your integrity, your virtue, and releasing what you cannot. Picture an archer. He cannot control the wind or the outcome of the shot. What he can control is the draw, the aim, the release. His urgency lies in mastering what is his to master. So it is with life. You cannot control when death arrives. You cannot control the whims of fate. But you can live today with focus, intensity, and presence. That is urgency without panic. Modern culture often confuses urgency with burnout, constant activity, endless motion. But true urgency is not about doing more, it is about doing what matters most. It is less about speed and more about direction. Less about volume and more about precision. Stoic urgency is not frantic living. It is focused living. Lesson 18. Living fully here and now. The final fruit of Stoic teaching on time and mortality is simple. Live fully in the present. Seneca warned, while we are postponing, life speeds by. Marcus reminded himself, confine yourself to the present. Epictetus urged, as you kiss your child good night, whisper to yourself, tomorrow he may die. Harsh words, but they reveal a profound truth. The present is the only place life exists. The past is memory, the future is imagination. Only this moment is real, and it is always slipping away. Living fully does not mean reckless indulgence. It does not mean chasing every thrill. It means meeting this moment with awareness, gratitude, and purpose. Think of a meal eaten absent-mindedly, you barely notice it and it disappears. Compare it to a meal eaten with attention. You taste it, savor it, and it nourishes more deeply. Life is no different. Without presence, it vanishes unnoticed. With presence, even ordinary days become abundant. Here Stoicism meets many other traditions. Buddhism speaks of mindfulness. Christianity urges believers to redeem the time. Modern psychology confirms the same. Happiness is tied to presence. To live fully is not to extend life in years, but to deepen it in moments. A short life lived with clarity and love is richer than a long life lived in distraction. Time is treasure. Death is certain. Life is urgent. These truths, pressed daily into Stoic practice, were not meant to depress, but to awaken. Memento mori is not fear of death. It is fear of wasting life. It is recognition that every hour is wealth, and every moment an invitation to live with virtue and presence. When you embrace mortality, you stop postponing. You stop living as though tomorrow is owed. You begin living as though today is enough, because it is. Desire, ambition, and the snare of materialism. Lesson 19. Desire is the first chain. The Stoics believed that unchecked desire is the first link in the chain of slavery. Not slavery of the body, but of the mind. Epictetus cautioned, freedom is not secured by satisfying desires, but by eliminating desire. His point was clear. If your happiness depends on something beyond your control, wealth, approval, pleasure, you are never free. You are shackled to fortune, vulnerable to loss at every turn. Seneca echoed this truth in his letters. It is not the man with too little, but the one who longs for more who is poor. This insight is ancient but more urgent now than ever. Our culture thrives on manufacturing desire. Ads, social media, algorithms. all engineered to keep us restless, discontent, endlessly craving. A new gadget, a sharper image, more likes, more applause. The wheel spins without end. The Stoics asked, to what purpose? What is gained if the finish line keeps moving? Desire, left unchecked, does not lead to fulfillment. It leads only to fatigue. True wealth, they argued, lies not in possessing more, but in needing less. This is not a call to abandon life or renounce joy. It is a call to mastery, to enjoy what you have without being enslaved by what you lack. Lesson 20. Ambition, servant or tyrant. Ambition is one of life's sharpest blades. Wielded well, it cuts paths to greatness. Wielded poorly, it cuts the soul. Marcus Aurelius wrestled with this tension. As emperor, he held unimaginable power and glory, yet wrote in his journals, ambition ties your happiness to what others say and do. In other words, ambition defined by recognition leaves you dependent on approval, and dependence is weakness. Seneca warned that those consumed by ambition often sacrifice peace, loyalty, and virtue in exchange for advancement. He likened ambition to climbing a dune of sand. No matter how high you climb, the ground beneath crumbles. Still, the Stoics did not reject ambition altogether. They redirected it. They asked, ambition toward what? If it seeks applause, it is vanity. If it serves others, if it pursues virtue, it can be noble. Ambition itself is not the enemy. It is energy. The question is, do you burn it chasing fleeting praise, or do you channel it toward lasting character? The world urges you to climb faster, higher, no matter the cost. The Stoics remind you, better to ascend slowly with integrity than to soar swiftly into ruin. Lesson 21. The mirage of more. Materialism is desire made visible, and perhaps the most seductive illusion of all. From childhood, we're told that happiness lies in accumulation. More possessions, more comfort, more luxury. The Stoics exposed the lie. Material goods may offer convenience, but never contentment. A soft bed may soothe your body, but not your spirit. A palace may protect your form, but not your peace. Seneca said it sharply. You act like mortals in what you fear, and like immortals in what you desire. We fear death as though time were short, yet we desire as though time were infinite. Modern science affirms this trap. Hedonic adaptation shows that joy from new possessions fades quickly. The new car, the promotion, the gadget, they thrill briefly, then dissolve into normalcy. The hunger for more always returns. Marcus Aurelius warned, what you think you own soon owns you. To live in endless pursuit is to become servant to your cravings, prisoner of your belongings. Minimalism echoes Stoic wisdom. The fewer things we cling to, the more room we create for clarity, purpose, and presence. The richest life is not the fullest closet, but the freest spirit. This does not mean despising possessions. It means using them as tools, not letting them use you. Drink the wine, but do not need it. Enjoy the comfort, but remember you can sleep on stone. Let goods serve you, not chain you. Lesson 22. The liberation of self-mastery. All Stoic warnings about desire and ambition point toward one destination: self-mastery. Epictetus taught that chains may bind the body, but only inner weakness binds the soul. A man enslaved by greed, envy, or vanity is less free than the beggar who has tamed his cravings. Self-mastery is not denial. It is not the killing of every appetite. It is balance, awareness, choice. It is becoming the master of desire rather than its servant. Picture two men at a feast. One piles food with anxious haste, fearing others will take the best. He eats greedily, never satisfied. The other accepts what is placed before him with gratitude, enjoying it fully without clinging. Who is richer? The Stoics would say, the second, for his wealth lies in freedom from need. True freedom is not absence of desire, but mastery of it. Lesson 23. When less truly becomes more. The Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort as training in freedom. Seneca ate coarse bread, wore rough clothes, and asked himself, is this what I feared? By embracing discomfort, he stripped desire of its teeth. He learned he could endure hunger, cold, plainness, and in doing so he became untouchable. Marcus Aurelius, though emperor, often slept on a hard cot. These practices were not punishments, but reminders. If you can live with less, you are never a hostage to losing more. In our age of excess, voluntary discomfort is not obsolete. It is essential. When comfort is constant, we grow fragile. When luxury is normal, we grow entitled. Simple disciplines, fasting, digital detox, cold water, minimalist living restore strength. The paradox of Stoicism is that less often becomes more. By needing less, you find more freedom. By desiring less, you uncover more joy. By rejecting ambition for status, you discover ambition for virtue. Desire, ambition, and materialism are not mere temptations. They are prisons built in plain sight. The Stoics did not pretend they had no power. They acknowledged them, resisted them, and redefined freedom not as indulgence, but as command of the self. To live freely is not to own more, but to need less. To live nobly is not to rise fastest, but to rise rightly. To live wisely is not to chase endlessly, but to stand complete in sufficiency. When you cease to be owned by your cravings, you uncover a freedom no wealth can purchase. Legacy, purpose, and the Stoic path to the unshakable life. Lesson 24. The weight of legacy. Every life leaves a mark. Some legacies are etched deep, others vanish quickly, but none of us pass through this world without leaving traces, on family, on community, on the fabric of humanity itself. The Stoics often ask themselves, what kind of legacy am I shaping? Marcus Aurelius, ruler of Rome, could have obsessed over monuments and marble statues. Instead, in his meditations, he reminded himself that even the brightest names fade. The ruins of Athens, the forgotten pharaohs, the once feared generals, all returned to dust. His concern was not whether he'd be remembered for centuries, but whether he lived rightly while alive. Seneca echoed this. What you do will be forgotten in time, but the manner in which you do it will never be lost, for it forms your soul. To the Stoics, legacy was not about fame but about character. Not about whether strangers recall your name, but whether you became the kind of person worth recalling. We, too, live in an age drunk on visibility. Followers, likes, and influence are mistaken for legacy, but they are only shadows. True legacy is not the number of people who know you exist, but the depth of lives you touch. It is not the monument, but the ripple. The Stoic challenge is this. When your story ends, will the way you lived weigh upon the world, or will it vanish like smoke? Lesson 25. Virtue as the final measure. The Stoics taught that legacy cannot be measured by wealth, status, or applause. Its only true scale is virtue, courage, justice, wisdom, temperance. Epictetus warned, if you wish to be good, first believe that you are bad. Not to shame, but to humble, to remind us that growth begins in honest self-awareness. Legacy is not built in grand monuments, but in small daily choices of integrity. Consider Marcus Aurelius. His empire spanned continents, yet his true greatness lay not in conquest, but in restraint, in leading with patience, fairness, and humility when absolute power rested in his hands. Virtue is rarely glamorous. It often hides in ordinary moments. How you treat a stranger when no one notices, how you resist anger when provoked, how you choose fairness when compromise would be easier. The Stoics remind us, external triumphs may glitter for a time, but virtue endures. And in the end, it is the only measure worth carrying into death. Lesson 26. Living urgently, dying calmly. The Stoic journey circles back to death. To live well is to be ready to die well, not with despair or panic, but with steady acceptance. Seneca declared, he who has learned how to die has unlearned how to be a slave. For death is the master fear, and once you befriend it, no power on earth can shackle you. Marcus Aurelius counseled himself, do not despise death, but embrace it, for it too is part of nature's will. Death is the book's last page. You cannot choose its length, but you can shape its content. And when the page turns, the question is not how long the book was, but how fully you wrote its chapters. The Stoic aim was never to outwit death, but to face it unflinching, to meet it with the same calm courage they brought to every trial of life. Lesson 27. The unshakable life. What emerges when Stoic wisdom is woven together. A blueprint for the unshakable life. Control what is yours, release what is not. Treat hardship as training, not punishment. Stand firm against opinion, unenslaved by approval. Guard time as your rarest wealth, and let death remind you of its price. Tame desire, ambition, and possessions before they tame you. Live by virtue, for it is the only currency that endures. This is the Stoic ideal, not a life without pain, but a life without fear. Not a life without storms, but one that stands unmoved through them. It is a life grounded not in luck, but in discipline. Not in applause, but in integrity. Not in how long you lived, but in how deeply. The unshakable life is not the warrior who never falls, but the one who rises each time. Not the man without scars, but the man who wears them as proof of endurance. Lesson 28. The crossroads of comfort and courage. We stand today at a crossroads much like Rome in decline. Surrounded by abundance, lulled by comfort, distracted into apathy. The world whispers, choose ease, choose pleasure, choose safety. Stoicism offers another road, courage. The courage to accept discomfort, to embrace discipline, to reject vanity, to live by virtue instead of applause. The choice is not ease or suffering. Suffering finds us all. The choice is between suffering with purpose or suffering without meaning. Each day at this crossroads you choose. Comfort or courage, distraction or presence, ease or growth. The Stoics remind us, you are not a spectator in life. You are a combatant in the great struggle of existence. Your choices, both small and great, determine which path you take. Final reflection. Stoic lineage. You are not the first to wrestle with hardship, with mortality, with legacy. You stand in a long lineage of warriors of the spirit. Marcus endured plague. Seneca endured exile. Epictetus endured slavery. Yet all chose dignity. All chose courage. All chose to live urgently and die serenely. Now it is your turn. Your struggles may not be fought in Roman courts or battlefields, but in offices, on screens, and in restless nights of doubt. Yet the question remains the same. Will you live unshakable, or be tossed by every storm? The Stoics never promised immortality. They promised freedom. They promised resilience. They promised a life lived so fully that when death arrives, you will not tremble. You will nod, knowing your time was well spent.